You push through the final mile of a wet, dusk commute. Your heart rate is 160, your cadence steady, and your smartwatch logs every second. Right now, millions of people are doing exactly the same thing. Through familiar wrist-worn devices, they are generating an immense daily volume of highly precise health, location, and behavioral data. We hand over this continuous biological stream freely. In return, the platforms give us back our own performance charts, some social engagement, and a few digital badges. But that data has tangible monetary value. Actuaries, healthcare providers, and city planners need verified behavioral inputs to make financial decisions. Right now, the monetary value extracted from your movement is captured entirely by the tech companies housing your data. If you use a standard fitness tracker, you are participating as free labor in a massive data economy, entirely cut out of the actual financial return your sweat is generating. The market is currently fracturing into two very different ecosystems: traditional fitness tracking platforms and a new category called evidentiary protocols. Traditional platforms like Strava and Garmin are built to produce information. They record that an activity occurred and output personal fitness metrics or peer engagement. Evidentiary protocols, specifically a system called VIDAT, are built to produce assets. VIDAT is a verification system designed to satisfy auditors and actuaries, verifying exactly who performed the activity and on what equipment, converting that movement directly into economic, environmental, and healthcare capital. This diagram shows the structural difference between the two. On the left, traditional tracking operates as a continuous loop, passively collecting data in the background. On the right, an evidentiary protocol operates as a gated, linear path, requiring strict verification checkpoints before moving forward. This presents a clear choice. You can have the frictionless ease of background tracking, which yields zero financial return, or you can accept the friction of verifying your identity and equipment to actively monetize your activity. Evaluating these platforms means setting aside features like screen brightness or GPS refresh rates. The decision comes down entirely to privacy architecture and institutional economic output. Traditional smartwatches operate in a default on posture. The device continuously monitors your physiology, logging a vast continuum of your daily movement. This design demands a massive, open-ended data generation compromise. Because the tracking is passive, you have very little control over when your biological data is being recorded and aggregated. The DOT operates in the exact opposite manner, a strict default off posture. It is a user-initiated opt-in verification protocol. To start this process, you must intentionally initiate a session. Without that explicit binary choice from the user, the protocol remains completely dormant. Activating the system requires deliberate friction. You have to confirm your identity, pass biometric validation, and link to registered tagged equipment. Passive GPS telemetry alone will not trigger the system. Once that specific activity window closes, the tracking stops. Outside of those tightly bounded, user-approved moments, zero data exists, and nothing is transmitted to any institution. The system's architecture makes privacy a structural requirement. Data only exists when you intentionally choose to monetize a specific verified activity. When you shift your transportation habits, the effects on the local environment are immediate, but usually invisible to the financial system. If you log a bicycle commute on a standard fitness app, you might see an emissions saved notification pop up on your screen. Because that number is entirely self-reported and cannot be audited, it carries no weight. It is legally useless to carbon registries or municipal ESG planners looking to mitigate vehicle miles traveled. Logging that exact same commute through a verified protocol changes the math. The system measures your specific ride against the documented emissions baseline of your registered internal combustion engine vehicle. This precise, auditable measurement generates a specific asset, the Bicycle Commuter Carbon Avoidance Credit, or BCCAC. This flowchart illustrates the life cycle of that asset. A verified pedal stroke generates a BCCAC token, which is then routed directly into a localized municipal infrastructure fund. Through this routing mechanism, the environmental value of your daily commute directly finances the physical construction of new bike lanes and parking corrals in your own city. But spontaneous, unverified rides cannot generate these credits and are rejected by the system. Strict compliance with the verification protocol is mandatory to produce these assets. A verified protocol takes a mundane, everyday commute and turns it into a liquid environmental asset that physically reshapes your city's infrastructure. Closing daily activity rings and reviewing months of health data can be highly motivating on a personal level. However, standard app data fails entirely at the institutional level. It lacks anti-spoofing controls, meaning it cannot meet the strict compliance standards required by actuaries. This diagram shows why insurance companies and underwriters legally must reject standard app data. They cannot use unverified inputs to calculate risk or release held capital from their institutional risk pools. Delivering audit-ready, evidentiary-grade activity data directly into an employer's benefits ecosystem forces a different outcome entirely. This verifiable data unlocks a specific financial mechanism known as Healthcare Reserve Release as a Service, or HRRaaS. Look at this balance sheet representation. By proving lower behavioral risk among employees, corporations can legally unlock capital previously held in reserve for incurred but not reported healthcare claims, transferring it directly into free cash flow. That newly available free cash flow is then passed down to the participating employee through a direct reduction in their monthly healthcare premiums. To access these cash savings, the employee has to be comfortable intentionally sharing their certified behavioral data with these institutional financial models. Evidentiary data acts as the required bridge, translating individual sweat equity into corporate balance sheet relief and ultimately lowering out-of-pocket costs for everyone involved. Traditional tracking apps serve the needs of personal motivation and social community, rather than institutional economics. This data divide has created two distinct viewer personas, as shown in this comparison table: the quantified athlete and the pragmatic monetizer. If you prioritize wear and forget convenience, chasing personal records, and comparing times with friends, you should remain within the traditional ecosystem. The accepted trade-off for the athlete is that your biological data will remain an unmonetized, siloed personal metric, yielding no financial return. If you view your physical exertion as an investment and you demand strict default-off privacy controls, you should migrate to the evidentiary protocol ecosystem. The pragmatist accepts the daily friction of verification because they understand it is the necessary cost of lowering their insurance premiums and directly funding local infrastructure. The traditional model of the entire fitness data economy is being replaced by systems designed for institutional verification. Exchanging biological data for digital badges leaves the financial value of that information on the table. The decision moving forward is no longer about evaluating which wrist-worn device has the best GPS accuracy. You have to decide right now if your daily physical exertion will remain a fleeting personal statistic, or if you will upgrade it into a certifiable wealth-generating asset.